Great. Now, is it okay with you if we just go with this? This conversation is great so far.
Sure,
As
if you
far
want to shoot it from the hip, that's what I'm saying. Because I can tell me and you vibe really well, and I was like, I would figure from you would be on the standpoint of you ask questions like, hey, I'm a beginner, I'd like to get into getting a firearm and firearms training. What are some of the gear? What is the rifle you recommend? Just the things like that. We can go from there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm just going to give you an open platform. Let's roll with this. Folks, if you have an opportunity to check out this YouTube channel, I would strongly recommend it. It's Jonathan Piccone. Did I say that properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's spelled Piccone. Now, there's multiple videos on here. Now, the YouTube channel, I'm sure, is going to grow a lot faster now that you're getting some more exposure. And what I like is the first video that I'm looking at is Initial Bare Necessities for Training. So there's a lot of people that listen to Leak Project as well that are very, how do I put this? They're ready for certain possibilities to unfold, such as maybe bank holidays, maybe a CME that wipes out satellites and technology for a while, certain events. So they do their best to prepare little bits and pieces and eventually get to the point to where if something does happen, they can be as comfortable and prepared as possible. It's just like insurance. People have different types of insurance that they spend thousands of dollars, sometimes a month on, yet they oftentimes neglect certain stuff like this, just even a bug out bag. Now, I used to be the kind of guy when I worked for a Fortune 100 company downtown San Antonio. Before that, I worked for the same company in the Northwest for a few years. I transferred down here, but I was the kind of guy that was taking my bug out bag to work with me. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, okay, I'm 15 miles from my house. If SHTF does happen, do I really need a bug out bag with me, or will I be okay with just a few things, a couple necessities and stuff, and find a way to get home that 15 miles? I mean, I could run that in less than a few hours. So, make a long story short, I think that there's things that are important. You need to be aware of what you're doing, where you're going, and stuff like that. But you don't necessarily need to have a giant bug out bag every time you go to work if you're just a few miles away. So, what are the things, like, are you well prepared for certain situations where if you have to live off the grid, if you have to take care of yourself without going to the supermarket and relying on energy from the utility companies, do you think you could live a fair, decent life?
I would probably say as much as anybody who prepares, even a guy who's probably got a bunker underground, they're always going to say they're never 100%. So, me to tell you that I'm 100% ready to go is completely not the case. The main thing is everybody needs to be building a community, as in getting to know your neighbors, having a plan. But the caveat to that is if they're awake. When you try to tell them that, a lot of people, they veer off and think you're, a tinfoil hat. So, trying to do this, it's almost like, truth is a lonely warrior, and a lot of us are aware of this, and a lot of us feel that we're doing this on our own. I have enough weapons, ammunition, first aid to get by. You can get canned goods. I have a spring that's right near my house. That's fresh water, comes right out of the earth, and that's a mile away. So I have fresh water, which is the most important thing out of anything. But when it comes to survivability by myself, do I have a cave underground and solar panels? No, I don't have that. I'm just like every other American. Have a house and a job and bills to pay and scrounging what I can, because I take this from the standpoint of not all of us have this great expansive means of survival. We're all kind of plugged into the matrix trying to figure it out until the switch is flipped and everything happens. So I have enough means to survive, but as in again, like some bunker or something like that, no, I do not.
Well, and let me jump in real quick if I can. Do you mind if I bring up what you did in the military, or the fact that you were in the military? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yes, I don't mind at all, man.
Great. Now, I have a lot of friends and family that have served in the military. They're wonderful people. If they had $1 left to their name and they were hungry, but they saw that you were, they would give you that dollar. I mean, that's the kind of people that they are. You're not going to get much of the buck, but I'm just using that as a figure of speech. So it's a tough deal. And even my brother fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he came back and he talked about it, and he had some tough times with it. And I remember him saying that, there was that initial honeymoon stage where they get you all pumped up and ready to go, and then you come back, and he was like, what did I do? What was the main purpose of that? But as far as like the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, even if there was weapons of mass destruction, and I heard from some inside sources, and I can't say who these people are, but they've worked with many organizations, and there was weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein moved out of there shortly before the invasion. But even with that said, so what? I mean, there's plenty of countries out there that have weapons of mass destruction, right? So does that necessarily mean that we've got more weapons of mass destruction than I think about anybody? So does that give us all that I'm saying is, I don't know if there was that direct threat. You know what I mean?
No,
So I
no.
can
If
certainly
you want
see
to
it being
say,
like a
if
corporate deal more so than.
yeah, well,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, that's okay. That's
Flag.
okay. Yeah, no problem.
I would say, man, if you wanted to know if there was a weapon of mass destruction there, it was, and it was called U.S. military. There's a lot of innocent civilians that were hurt and killed on both sides to that whole campaign of us being there, man. For my mission, I wasn't out looking for WMDs. If I really wanted to, we should have just gone back to good old Dick Cheney and asked him when he was shaking Saddam's hand where they were. But needless to say that, it was a big flim flam sham job, man. It was just a good way to get a foothold in the Middle East, to be able to spread their dark tentacles across the Middle East, in my opinion. But there was no weapons of mass destruction there. I seen more innocent people get hurt or killed from both sides than I did from any type of nuclear, biological, chemical agent, or some big explosive. So, from my opinion, no, our mission wasn't there. It was just a constant cycle of exposing ourselves, making contact, or trying to find IEDs. A lot of the weapons and munitions were shipped from China and France. A lot of the guys weren't local Iraqis. They were coming in from other regions, especially, like we detained 2 redheads that wouldn't talk to us, that looked Caucasian, and we were told they were probably from Chechnya. So it was just a staging ground for them to come out and come kill Americans. And, I always had the standpoint being there is, what if our country was framed for something we didn't do, and a foreign country came here and implemented the same thing we did to them? I mean, how do you think we would take it,
Well, like I said, I think the whole thing as far as going into the country, whether or not they did have weapons of mass destruction, unless that they posed a serious threat and, they were getting ready to use them on us, like you said, it's just kind of one of those things where many people got flim-flammed and hoodwinked into fighting for the wrong reasons. So let me ask you this, though. Do you think that all of that training that you went through, what was it like? Put us in the picture, because I've never been in the military. I don't know what it's like to go through basic training and special tactics and stuff like that. Is it pretty intense? Is it something that you can take with you after you leave the military?
Trying to find employment or in a regular job as a civilian, no. But if you had to deal with the suck and push your mind through being able to handle stressful situations, yes, it can help. Okay, I'll say from day, I was 17. I signed up when I was young, went into basic training. And, a lot of guys will say, I was in special operations and I did all this high-speed stuff, parachuted and all that stuff. Though I did go to airborne school. The basic training is pretty much a smoke fest, meaning you just do a lot of push-ups, a lot of sit-ups, a lot of running. They break you down mentally, so that way they can sculpt you and mold you into, the machine that they want to continue the, whatever the war campaign is. But it's a lot of mind control, not mind control, but I guess you could say it breaks you down to be able to absorb the training that they have for you. A lot of cool stuff doesn't really start until you go to, now mind you, I was infantry, which is 11 Bravo, so it wasn't as glamorous as a lot of people think. Yeah, Full Metal Jacket really tried to make it out like it was something cool, though. I had an Asian drill sergeant Kwok, who was man, it was rough, dude. He was hardcore, but he was a ranger, so he had legs that were like big around as Arnold, man. He was just a machine, dude. And going through basic, it was a lot of running, a lot of road marches, getting a lot of weight on your back, getting conditioned to be able to carry all that stuff. Now, I was in a transitional phase before body armor really started coming around, so we wore flak vests before IBAs or body armor came in. This is around 2003 of June. You go through 9 weeks of basic training, and then you go through another however many more weeks it is, depending on your MOS. Mine was a total of 12, 13 weeks of basic training total. And usually you don't really learn a lot of soldiering per se until you get to your unit. When you get to your unit, they have SOPs, the standard operating procedures, where a lot of the guys who have experience will teach you their experience. Like a lot of the guys from my unit were all third ID guys from the invasion of Iraq. So needless to say, I had a lot to show them, and they taught me a bunch being during the invasion. I'm sure you're aware of that during the beginning of the year of 2003.
Right.
But I went through airborne school after basic training. I got an opportunity to be a ranger, go through ranger school, and I was like, nah, I'll try regular infantry and see if I like that. I was smart, luckily, and I got stuck with a mechanized infantry unit on Kelly Hill in Fort Benning, Georgia, which is the 3rd Infantry. And if anybody's aware, that was the same infantry unit that Audie Murphy was a part of, which is, the most decorated soldier of World War II. The nickname was Broken Television. And so I had a lot of training with them. We went to the National Training Center at NTC at Fort Irwin, California, to do desert warfare training. You ever heard of that, Fort Irwin?
No.
Yeah, it's a place where a lot of guys will dress up like Op-4 Russians at the time, and they do pretty much like a simulated war battle between modern type military. So they'll retrofit U.S. vehicles to look like Russian vehicles. They had a lot of Hind Russian helicopters, which is pretty cool. You wear the Miles gear, which has the laser stuff, so when you shoot with your rifle, it blanks, it rings and tells you when you're shot or something like that. But it's a big logistical thing for the higher ups to be able to use strategy to organize big picture of movement of troops and things of that nature. And then after we did NTC, we went to Fort Polk, where, funny, we left the desert environment and then trained in Fort Polk, Louisiana, where we actually started doing more counterinsurgency type operations for 2 weeks. And when we were doing that, it was pretty much they would have civilians come down there and dress up as the Middle Eastern people with their man dresses and thing. And they would wear the Miles gear too. So if you shot accidentally or fraudulently, you could get in trouble for, shooting an innocent, quote unquote, at the time. And that's when we started to learn how to kind of get our feet wet with the whole civilian population being amongst the indigenous people. Now they were role playing, but it was 2 weeks. And it was pretty cool. I thought it'd be pretty neat because, like, the first 3 days, they had a Green Beret unit that came by, and a squad from my platoon got offered to go work with them. And I thought, oh, this is going to be cool. I'm going to work with Special Forces. And I begged the other squad leader, can I go with you? Man, I made a big mistake because all we did was pull guard when they got to sleep. It was awful. But we got to play with some of their toys and their weapons and things like that and see how they ran. And after we did that for about a week, it was an hour on, hour off for 7 days straight. And they played, oh God, what was that song on back in the 80s? The whole, they played a song from the 80s over and over and over on the intercom.
Like a Top Gun song or Good Morning Vietnam or something?
I'm going to do the song. I know it's going to sound silly.
Here we go.
You remember the one where it was like a drawing? Family Guy made fun of like the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they played that song over and over and over for a whole week straight. Oh my God, I thought I was going to go mad. It was awful. Yeah,
an MK Ultra 80s pop song. Was that NXS?
I think, is that the name of the band?
It's something like that. It was definitely a band genre similar to NXS, yes.
And I think their mindset was because there's a lot of prayer at a certain time in the Middle East, but not as much as that. But I think it was just to keep your mind not focused on trying to get through the suck. It was kind of like trying to just break you down mentally as much as possible. Use any senses they can to break you down. And, again, like I thought it was going to be cool working with Special Forces, but all I did was pull guard while they got to sleep because they're smart. They know. Look at that regular Army guys pull the guard shift while they get to sleep. So, but I got to shoot some of their guns and stuff and meet some of the guys. And then when I went into country, I actually ran across some of those guys. And it was weird because there was a Special Forces guy that actually died, one of the first ones in Afghanistan. And I wrote him a letter, and I got a letter back from his wife, and I told that team about him, and they actually knew him. And I remember him. I forget what his name. His name was Chad. He never got their last names. Mind you, they always do first name basis. They never did last name because they're unorthodox. They do their own thing. And he always said, "You're one of us." I'm like, nah. Once I get done with this regular leg stuff, I'm done. I'm getting out. I was kind of feeling it at that point. And then after we went to Fort Polk and we did that, mind control 80s music, getting no sleep, having to learn how to cordon and deal with it, local people. We went December of 2004. We shipped off to Kuwait, went to Kuwait for about 2 weeks to a month. And then from Kuwait, we flew a Chinook, from Chinook to Baghdad. And then Baghdad, we went to, the first 6 months was in a town or area called Bakuba, Iraq. And it was pretty much going out trying to find IEDs, working with the local Iraqi army, Iraqi police. I mean, I remember we did a lot of tower guard. There's a lot of tower guard. A lot of guys who are veterans will tell you, a lot of sitting, looking out during whatever the observation post you have is. I filled a lot of sandbags, and I was a smart ass, so I burned the outhouse a lot. I always got outhouse detail and had to burn the excrements in the 50-gallon barrel cut in half. So I
bet that was fun.
Oh, dude. Yeah, everybody thinks it's glamorous. It's a whole lot of misery, and then like maybe 5% you get to encounter actually doing your job when you're in country. But yeah, it was it was quite interesting. But I realized there and I don't mean to digress or shoot off the topic, but I wanted to tell you the reason why I felt like it was a monopoly, man. You got to think how many armored vehicles, how much fuel, how much it costs to equip one soldier, one rifle, all the ammunition, all the shots you got to take, all the gear you got to wear, all the gear you're issued. And every time you go over there, think of all the big corporations that are making money off that. And if no one dies, they're not making any money. I mean, we're using up-armored vehicles, Bradleys and Humvees, but yet they can use pennies on the dollar type of explosive and just wipe them out, and we got to replace them and spend millions. And we didn't even really use any type of aviation assets, no air assault like in Vietnam where we landed with helicopters, which I think would strategically have been more safe because you can't really put an ID in the air. And we actually felt safer patrolling than we did using vehicles. Because once you use vehicles, you can only go so many places. You know, you only have so many patterns that they could set up an ID to go off. The other thing they like to use was foo gas, which is pretty much like, I guess for lack of better terms, it's like a napalm ID where it blows like sticky type, like a fire that just sticks on the vehicle. And it was very cheap and expensive stuff. And so logistically, it was a money scheme because every time a soldier dies or a vehicle gets blown up, that's millions that has to get purchased to be replaced for more soldiers. So it's a cycle of money, you see?
Of course it is. And it also, I wonder, at somewhat of a metaphysical level, I've often thought about this. And, you know, obviously growing up in the 80s, listening to songs by Ozzy Osbourne, where he talks about the generals gathering in masses like witches at black masses. And you think about this constant war that it seems like we've been in for so long, proxy wars, not just global wars, but proxy wars here and there. It seems like they're feeding this, this beast system almost. Like you said, they profit off of war. So let's look at the practical side of things, not the woo-woo side of things, like some might say. There's so much money with the equipment, the weapons, the defense contractors. Right. I mean, the majority of the monies go to defense contractors. So if you really think about it, the industry that controls the majority of the world is the defense contractors that are intertwined with the media, the entertainment industry, the medical industrial complex, the food industries. All of this is orchestrated and designed at certain levels to work in harmony together, suppressing the masses. So yeah, that's incredible, man. That's why I think more people that want to break out of that system need to be in a system themselves where they can take care of themselves, where they can live they can live comfortably without having to rely on these industries that we have for so long, unless we can find a way to change them. Because these industries could be used for such miraculous and wonderful things, yet whatever it is that controls them does it in a way where it suppresses and hurts people and the world overall, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, like you just said, I mean, how much do you think it costs to make a nuclear sub? Billions, right? Let's just say billions. How much of that money could we use to feed people across this whole planet? How much money could we use to be able to make means of free energy for humanity on this planet? Instead, they use, and the other thing is I really feel like they have their Lord, their gods, their dark master feeds off of that suffering because it was so thick in the air. You could feel it. It's just the angst, the misery, the low vibrations that was there. It was so prevalent, man. I mean, I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but from a spiritual aspect of actually being sensitive to feeling that, I'm telling you, man, that was a feeding ground for dark energy in that area. So,
welcome to the New World Order, where they love you.
Yeah.
They want to give your babies poison and feed you thimerosal, but they love you.
Oh, God. Think how many shots they gave me, dude. I've probably been glow in the dark here in 5 years, man.
Oh, wow. Let me jump in on that real quick, because I have a friend that was in the military, and he said that he had that anthrax vaccine. He said as soon as he got it, he knew something was wrong. He saw people that weighed 300 pounds that got the vaccine shot or the anthrax shot, and they would literally go into convulsions on the ground. And I also did some more research on this. Doctors, I was told, couldn't prescribe these vaccines because they were experimental. So they had to use like MPs and paramedics and stuff. Is that correct? Did you get the anthrax vaccine?
Yes, I was actually told if you had a certain level of inoculations with, like there's phase 1, phase 2 of the anthrax vaccine, that you can actually donate your blood for money to do research on. So
look at the bright side. Yeah, there you go.
I've gotten weird phone calls before. I got a phone call from the VA once since I'm a twin. They called and asked, hey, is this Mr. Picone? I'm like, yes, this is he. He goes, well, I'm so-and-so from the Department of Veteran Affairs, and we would like to know if you would like to come do a survey or tests on twins. We've been doing research on this since World War II, and we'd like to know if you would like to be part of it." And I go, "So wait a second, what are you going to do?" And he would just shoot around the bush and tell me, "Oh, this and that, we done it since World War II." And I'm like, "You know who did research on twins during war?" He goes, "Who's that?" I go, "The Nazis." "No thanks," and I hung up the phone. So
good for you.
yeah, it's yeah. Well, it's just the only way we're going to be able to get out of this, dude. And a lot of veterans might agree with me, some won't. Is you gotta quit feeding the machine, man. We have to set our uniforms down and say enough's enough. It's the only way it's going to end. If you keep on, I know you like Mark Passio as much as I do, and he really spiritually woke me up. And the only way you're going to stop is order following. I mean, that's the only way to get us out of this paradigm. Because until you do that, they got you because you submit. Once you follow orders, you submit to their spiritual contract, and you lose all types of free will. And that's why I say in my YouTube channel, defend free will. Because there's a reason for that.
Let's jump into that then. Let's segue this to the next part of the show, where you want to tell us about practical applications and things that we can do to protect ourselves, and also, just establish a set of principles and ideals, essentially, that people can take care of themselves better without having to rely on the machine.
Okay. Well, for one thing, we'll start with the bare bones. Depending and dictating on your state, I highly recommend everyone to get their CCW or handgun carry permit and carry their firearm on them at all times. That's your first thing, because we need to have more of an armed society. And as much as you and the viewers know, there is a big push on, declawing and defanging the American populace. That would be my first thing, is you get your CCW and get some actual pistol or firearms training. Don't just go there and do the qualification at 15 feet and shoot a big human silhouette and pass. That's too easy. You need to learn how to actually fight with that weapon. There's a big difference between standing in a line and loading your magazine and firing rounds in a silhouette. That's it. There's way more of a dynamic to actually fighting with a weapon. And I would recommend getting some type of a pistol, tactical or defensive pistol type training with your sidearm after you get your CCW. So that way it gives you a little bit more confidence to actually be able to know how to swing the sword, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then after that, I would recommend to purchase a rifle. Now, there's going to be tons of rifles and weapons to pick from, but from logistically, from my opinion, I would recommend getting an AR-15. The second one is getting something that uses an AR-15 style magazine, but you want to stick with an AR-15. The reason why is it's the most prevalent firearm in the U.S., okay? Everybody owns an AR. Police have ARs. Military have ARs. You want to stick with something that's chambered in 5.56, not 223, and you want to use obviously AR-15 magazines, because parts are more common. As things go down, most people are going to have something to be able to do trade-off, if you need repair parts and things like that. You don't need a lot of magazines. All you need is about 7 magazines is plenty. Now, if you want to go more, that's fine. You can use the 30-round magazines, but you want to keep 28 rounds in your mag. That's what I learned when I was overseas. Is my weapon ran flawlessly when I put 28 rounds instead of a 30-round mag, because the 28-round magazine has less spring tension, and majority of your malfunctions from a firearm, I would say about 85 to 95% is probably from a bum magazine. So you always want to keep 28 rounds in it and leave it. You don't have to empty it and reload it, because that wears down the spring just like a shock on a car. If you keep on running it up and down, it wears out the shock. So that helps with good feeding. Plus, when the bolt's closed, it gives you a little bit of space to seat the magazine, because when you fully load it, it's really hard to seat that magazine. So when you strip off 2 rounds, it's easier to snap it with a bolt closed forward, if that makes sense.
Okay.
All right. And the other thing is you want to get a backpack. Usually surplus stores will sell small Alice packs. You want to get ones with a frame. And you want to have at least 2 canteens on you. You can put them on the backpack, or you can keep it on a gear setup. A lot of guys like to dress out in like the tactical stuff with chest rigs, and which holds the magazines around your chest, so you can index and grab your magazine to do reloads, which is nice for that, but it wastes real estate to be able to hold essential stuff, because you're going to be doing a lot more walking and survival than you are going to be fighting all the time. A real simple thing I always recommend on my channel is just a bandolier. Look for a 4-pocket M16 bandolier. They're like $4. That holds 4 magazines, and it's the lightest system I've seen possible to hold magazines. I wish I would have thought of that when I was in country, but that is a very light system to hold magazines. when you go to AR-15, you want to go with something that's reliable. Now, there's tons of ARs out there that are really inexpensive. Smith & Wesson makes one. Bushmaster makes one. But that's if you were on money, like you're about $600-700. That'll get you a good entry-level AR-15 with a retractable stock and M4 style handguard. But if money's not an option, or money is, you can spend more, I would recommend getting a 20-inch barreled AR-15 with a fixed butt stock. And the reason for that is it's gassed properly. And it's called timing. When the bullet is ignited inside the chamber and it's going through the barrel, there's gases, just like a piston in a car, that cycles through the gas key and cycles your bolt. Well, when you start, like, you ever seen guys in, like, M16s with really short barrels? You ever seen, shorty commando style M16s? Well, you don't want to use those. One thing, they're loud, really loud. The other thing is that they're not gassed right because there's not enough chamber pressure to build gas to cycle the weapon. And that's why, for my instance, when I carried an M16, I had one made by Fabrique Nationale, which had a 20-inch barrel, and I had zero malfunctions when I was in country with that weapon. Now, M4s now with a 16-inch barrel, because that's usually the legal length for an AR-15, is fine. It'll get the job done, but the other thing is it has a retractable buttstock, which is good for if you want to, store it somewhere or keep it where it's compact, but it's not really necessary. If we're going to end up using our rifle if things go down, there's no need to store it at that point. So a fixed 20-inch barrel with a fixed buttstock, fixed front sight post. Don't use flip-up polymer ones. You want a fixed standard metal front sight post, and then a flat top, which means there's a Picatinny, a rail system on the top, so you can mount an optic of your choice. And make sure you have a rear flip-up sight that's metal, not polymer. Usually, you can get one. FN makes an M16 that's about $1,000, and that's usually the guideline. You pay for what you get with firearms. If you get a cheap and inexpensive weapon, you're going to pay for what you get. I've learned this the hard way. I've spent a lot of money on different types of inexpensive firearms, taking these classes, going through 1,000 rounds, a little over 1,000 rounds in 2 days, and have them shut down on me. And it's very disconcerting. But if you use out of the box, no kit gun, don't build your own AR-15. Just get one that's sold from a distributor, 20-inch barrel. It's gonna last you. Lubrication, you don't have to go real fancy. You can use engine oil. I've tried it all. Engine oil works just fine for lubricating your weapon. You don't have to clean it as much as you think. We used to have a saying in the military called "give it a whore bath," which means just kind of wipe all the stuff down and put it back together. That's really all you got to do. To clean a weapon, you can use diesel fuel, or you can use hops, which is, I'm sure you've seen that at Walmart, the hops gun cleaning kit. Has that strange aroma to it. Yeah, that you get old toothbrush and hops, paper towels, and engine oil, and that's all you need to keep your weapon clean. You don't have to clean out the barrel that much. A lot of competition precision shooters will actually not clean out the barrel because their consistency of point of impact changes, because when they clean it out, it does something to the harmonics of the bullet actually not hitting what their point of aim was before. So I don't clean out my barrel a lot. All you need to do is make sure it's a chrome line barrel. That'll keep from the bullet seizing in the chamber. It'll keep from rust and things of that nature. So just keep a chrome line barrel, 20-inch. There's different things like, what was the twist rate I used? Just stick between a 1-7 and 1-9 twist rate. You can use light grain stuff. So that's pretty much it. I always recommend 20-inch barrel, fixed butt stock. You'll have less mechanical failure, and they shoot softer. They have a softer recoil impulse than they do if you have a shorter barrel. And or backpack, something you can hold canned food. You don't have to go out and get all these tactical MREs and stuff like that. You can get canned food. It's just fine. That's all you need. Means of carrying water purification, a tarp to keep you dry, like a poncho. You can get surplus ponchos really cheap. Boots, you want to go with just a black all leather. They're more waterproof than the new desert style ones because they get wet real easy. So just a surplus boot just to keep your feet dry. Extra pair of socks, extra pair of clothes, and you're good to go. But the main thing is actually getting all that on and practicing walking in the woods with it, because a lot of people have it and sit around, but they're not actually gearing up with themselves or other person or a group of people and actually walking with it, and realize that the big difference when you start walking with it than you are if you just have it nearby at all times.
Now, what do you think about also maybe are there certain books and strategy guides that you would recommend for people that maybe haven't spent countless hours or a lot of time in survival type situations being prepared for that?
Yes, actually the military has a very good survival field guide that you can use. I don't remember the FM at the top of my head, but the military has survival field manuals that you can use. A Ranger handbook I would recommend. If you wanted an initial something to keep on you to help with survival, is get you a Ranger handbook. That was the main staple for most infantrymen when I was in, and it was great material. That would probably be the bare bones I would recommend, is the Ranger handbook. The other thing is actually getting some type of firearms training, and not just firearms training, but first aid training. There's actually tactical places out there that teach you how to actually administer first aid, because that's actually a very important skill to have too, which a lot of people obviously don't have that kind of training. I always keep a tourniquet in my pocket whenever I go out on my EDC or everyday carry. I keep a tourniquet which stops the bleeding. That's always a good thing to have on you, especially you need it, and if you have a gear, you want to have a first aid kit on you. Like quick cloths, bandages, things like that. You want to have a first aid kit on you also. So,
what do you use for? Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to ask you: do you prepare certain antibiotics, or do you know how to make that stuff for, future possibilities, or is that something you don't even get concerned about?
Hydrogen peroxide, man. If you need a good do-all for everyday person, I got a jug of colloidal silver and I got a thing of hydrogen peroxide. That usually will take care of most of your bacterial infections. I would recommend super glue. When you get cuts that might possibly happen that's real deep, if you don't have stitches, I recommend using super glue. I always keep that in my first aid kit. It really does help seal the wound. It does slightly disinfect too because of the chemical disposition of what super glue is, and your body will actually, how if you have foreign body, your body will repel it out. After a while, your body will start to heal, and actually the whatever the super glue adheres to, it'll actually go away. So super glue is a very good first aid thing. For disinfectant, man, hydrogen peroxide, it does numbers. You can use it for brushing your teeth. You can use it for first aid. You can use it to disinfect your countertops. I'm thinking from a standpoint of the everyday person. So I would recommend just going with some colloidal silver and some hydrogen peroxide.
Great. And what else would you recommend to our listeners?
Get some firearms training. If they got a rifle or AR-15 and they got ammunition or whatever, they need to get some training. Because the times we're in now, and I'm sure, Rex, you're aware of this too, that, I mean, logistically, let's not get off topic, but remember you were talking about yesterday about there was a video you posted yesterday about United Nations or China or something of that nature.
China, how they've got microchips, faulty microchips in the majority of computers in the U.S., or a large portion of them.
Sure. Look at all the states that are being disarmed. Have you not noticed that they're all coastal states?
That's interesting. They're big cities. California. That's a good point. Very good point.
Well, right. Why do you think that is? Soften it up if there was a possible. Now, this is hypothetical, but if I was going to invade, I'd want to make sure that everybody doesn't have a firearm, right? That'd probably be a soft zone to be able to invade, would it not?
Well, of course. And then also you see these, a lot of these videos that I've seen of these mass shootings that are portrayed on these mainstream media outlets. Oftentimes, there's so much evidence after the fact that points to these are false flags and staged events to cause the agenda of this, bipolar society of one side wants guns, the other side says, no, we need to get rid of them. And then eventually they think they're going to be able to steer the audience, the population, the majority of them into wanting to give up their arms. And that's what they've been trying to do for years, in my opinion. Now, when you see this kind of stuff happening, now that you bring up the coastal cities, I think that's another good point, because if a country, let's say China, for example, I'm just using them as an example. I'm not saying they're going to invade us, but let's say that they did. If they came in with as many people as they have, if they came in, they would probably use on the coast, East Coast or West Coast. And then when you see these events take place in the media, and then afterwards China comes out and says, oh, that's why you need to get rid of your guns so this won't happen. We really feel bad for the people that were a part of this. It's just this political jargon. And you wonder, are these politicians selling out sometimes? Not all of them, but are there certain politicians that sell out to countries off out of our system here for their agendas, etc., to keep them in office, to help them out? Okay, I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. It really makes you wonder.
Of course. And the other thing you got to look at is, I think that, they might try to push to take guns away, but let's think of this from a spiritual standpoint. If there is rebellion, if there is armed resistance, their masters want them to bleed and suffer just as much as us. Wouldn't you say so? They want to feed off of whatever that low vibrational energy is. So as much as they try to push taking guns away, I feel like it's more fear for gun industries, who I think might have a hand in this making money. Because you got to think, man, look at how much gun scare that Obama administration did and how much gun sales just skyrocketed. You're not going to tell me that he didn't have a hand in some type of funds for getting gun sales in this country? I mean, And then you have the NRA, which I'm still kind of questionable about. There's a big martial law. Are they going to come keep your guns? Are they going to show up? You know, no. The NRA ain't going to do nothing. They just another political faction to keep the paradigm going. And I'm really starting to think a lot of this gun industry is feeding off this fear to make money off of.
Well, statistically, they are. Statistically.
Of course. I mean, you got to think. Look, well, how many million firearms were sold? 300 million firearms.
A lot.
300 million was? Yeah. Okay. And we got to think each firearm weighs costs about $1,000 plus all the ammunition. Which, by the way, is kind of odd that the most inexpensive ammunition we got is Two-Legged Wolf, which comes from Russia. So Russia's, even though they banned, which I didn't know if you guys knew this, but they actually banned importation of Kalashnikov-style weapons from Russia, but yet we can buy their ammunition. So Russia's making a lot of money off of scared Americans wanting to prep with cheap, inexpensive ammunition. That's something to raise into consideration, too. But anyways, what we were talking about is, mind you, I'm sorry, this is my first interview. So
no, you're great, man. You're great.
Yeah. But, you know, I think these gun industries are making money off of it. You got to think, if you're up rubbing shoulders with these elites, you're going to these conventions and actually seeing them up in person. I'm to the point now where I think you have to be a part of some type of brotherhood to even get to that level to be amongst them. Has to be. And, you know, it's just look at the U.S. Army just purchased a $500 million contract with Sig Sauer. So we're getting rid of the Beretta M9, if any of you are aware. No more Beretta. They're transitioning over to Sig Sauer. So instead of going from the Vatican funding firearms, we're going to the company and country who guards the Vatican.
Yeah, really. What do you think of SIGs, though?
I don't like SIGs, and it's merely for the fact of the way I hold the pistol. It doesn't get slide lock on me. It's real top heavy. I carry a Glock. It's inexpensive. There's a lot of accessories you can get for it. They're very common. Most police departments use it. I mean, I can knock SIG because I never owned one. I fired a few, but I'm not a big fan of SIG myself. I prefer Glock just because of the commonality of magazines. Police departments use it. Most police departments are transitioning to 9mm anyway. So if your viewers are wanting to know what caliber to go with, stick with a 9mm. Speaking of Glock, England actually sold their Browning high powers, and they're going to Glock Gen 4. So the British Army is using Glock, in case you're aware of what the Redcoats are using now. So, yeah, SIGs are okay pistols. There's plenty of firearms that make quality handguns. Again, the same thing goes with rifles. You want to get a quality firearm. Don't get you a High Point or a Kel-Tec. They're junk. You want to spend quality money on something that can keep you alive, right? Would you want to, send your family off in some junk car that might break down, or would you rather them have a quality vehicle to keep them safe? That's the mindset you got to have with it. The SIGs are good. I don't like hammer pistols because you have the first trigger pull is a heavy trigger pull to get the hammer back. And then after that, it's a single stage, meaning it's a softer pull. I like Glock because there's less fuss. It's an internal sealed system, so it has less likelihood to cause malfunction. It's got a consistent 5.5-pound trigger pull. It's a pretty reliable system. SIGs are nice. They're kind of pricey. It doesn't feel good in my hands. And that's the other thing is like before you buy a pistol, no matter what it is, go to a gun range, spend a little bit of money and rent a bunch and see which one you like. I would not recommend going with a 380. You want to go with a 9mm. They make plenty of ballistic ammunition for personal defense, hollow points that is quite effective. Stay away from 40 cal. It has too much muzzle pressure, meaning it's got a lot of recoil. And they're a little bit more expensive, especially if you want to train. And it's really not a fun caliber to shoot because it's hard to keep your sights on target. And when you're inexperienced, having a heavy recoiling pistol is kind of disheartening when you're trying to learn the fundamentals on how to shoot. The trick is, I always noticed, is if you get a full frame, full size pistol and go with a 9mm, it has softer recoil. Once you get a smaller pistol and you go even up or down in caliber, the smaller the pistol, there's less metal to absorb the recoil. So it's got more of a sharper recoil. So I prefer I carry a Glock 17 full frame, but I'm a skinny guy. I carry appendix. Yeah, it depends on your body style too. A lot of guys like carrying strong side, like carrying on the smaller back. I carry appendix, which is up front to about my 130. If you're looking at a clock, imagine a clock above my body, and that's the position I carry. And the reason why is because I'm a skinny guy. I tried strong side on the hip, and I'm real bony, and it chased me the wrong way, and it was not very comfortable. Guys who have a gut or a heavier set, this is no disrespect, but we're all different human beings and different body types. Appendix is going to be hard to drive in to grab your pistol and clear it from your holster because you got to work around whatever your body type is. Now, if you do strong side to your side, you usually got to clear space and a little more cushion there so it's more comfortable. Don't go cheap on your holsters too. You want to go inside the waistband, not outside the waistband. But yeah, anyways, yeah, I like SIGs. They're nice pistols. It's just it doesn't feel good in my hand. I'm more of a Glock guy myself.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And anything else you'd like to share with us before we close out tonight, Jonathan? And I got to say, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And for those that have a chance to listen to this podcast, make sure to check out Jonathan's YouTube channel, Jonathan Piccone, Piccone.
Yeah, if you haven't bought your concealed carry permit, go ahead and get it now. Get you a pistol and then get you a rifle. Get some training. If anything, all I can recommend is get some type of quality firearms training for yourself. And it's not just for yourself, but for your friends and family. And stock up on food and water, first aid equipment, and build a community. Start communicating with your neighbors in case things go down, that you have a means of falling back on, because you can't do it all by yourself. You want to try to build a community. And yeah, if they got any more questions, they can hit me up on my YouTube. And if they want to see another video, just let me know. We'll try to make another one focus more on questions from your subs. So.
Yeah, that'd be great. Next time we do this, we'll go live and we'll get questions from the audience. That'll be fantastic.
Sure, will do. All right, well, you guys take it easy and defend free will and anti-Archon.
Right on. Yeah, watch out for the Darkons. And before you hang up real quick, I do just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Make sure to check out getthetea.com, you guys. I've been taking this supplement called D365, just one pill a day, and I love this stuff. It's like a detox pill. I think this is great. And also, I've got these really nice tactical flashlights and pens. Well, I've got one of each, but one is called the TC1200 by 1TAC. This thing is almost twice as bright as the biggest mag light that I've been able to find. It's got 1200 lumens. You can fit it in the palm of your hand. And if you can't carry a gun, if you're in one of those states that you can't carry a gun and you need to defend yourself, maybe you're a 5'1" gal that doesn't have martial arts training and you want to have something to kind of defend yourself. Plus, it'd be great to see in the dark, obviously. But this thing has a strobe function. So you put the strobe function on and you point it in somebody's eyes, and you can get literally a momentary blinding type sensation. So these things are awesome. And also that pen is really cool too, because you can write with it. You can use it as a flashlight. And also it's got a blade on the back of it too. And then it's got a window smasher. So if there's a car accident or something, you get stuck in a car, you can smash the window with it if you can get to it, obviously. But that's my shameless plug, ladies and gentlemen. And also, once again, check out Jonathan Piccone's YouTube channel. Thanks for everything, ladies and gentlemen. Be the change you want to see and question everything. Great. Now, is it okay with you if we just go with this? This conversation is great so far.
Sure. If you want to shoot it from the hip, that's what I'm saying. Because, I can tell me and you vibe really well. And I was like, I would figure you would be on the standpoint of you ask questions like, hey, I'm a beginner. I'd like to get into getting a firearm and firearms training. What are some of the gear? What is the rifle you recommend? Just the things like that. We can go from there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm just going to give you an open platform. Let's roll with this. Folks, if you have an opportunity to check out this YouTube channel, I would strongly recommend it. It's Jonathan Piccone. Did I say that properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's spelled Piccone. Now, there's multiple videos on here. Now, the YouTube channel, I'm sure, is going to grow a lot faster now that you're getting some more exposure. And what I like is the first video that I'm looking at is initial bare necessities for training. So there's a lot of people that listen to Leak Project as well that are very, how do I put this? They're ready for certain possibilities to unfold, such as maybe bank holidays, maybe a CME that wipes out satellites and technology for a while, certain events. So they do their best to prepare little bits and pieces and eventually get to the point to where if something does happen, they can be as comfortable and prepared as possible. It's just like insurance. People have different types of insurance that they spend thousands of dollars, sometimes a month on, yet they oftentimes neglect certain stuff like this, just even a bug out bag. Now, I used to be the kind of guy when I worked for a Fortune 100 company downtown San Antonio. Before that, I worked for the same company in the Northwest for a few years. I transferred down here, but I was the kind of guy that was taking my bug out bag to work with me. And I started thinking about it. And I was like, okay, I'm 15 miles from my house. If SHTF does happen, do I really need a bug out bag with me, or will I be okay with just a few things, a couple necessities and stuff, and find a way to get home that 15 miles? I mean, I could run that in less than a few hours. So make a long story short, I think that there's things that are important. You need to be aware of what you're doing, where you're going and stuff like that. But you don't necessarily need to have a giant bug out bag every time you go to work if you're just a few miles away. So What are the things, like, are you well prepared for certain situations where if you have to live off the grid, if you have to take care of yourself without going to the supermarket and relying on energy from the utility companies, do you think you could live a fair, decent life?
I would probably say as much as anybody who prepares, even a guy who's probably got a bunker underground, they're always going to say they're never 100%. So, me to tell you that I'm 100% ready to go is completely not the case. The main thing is everybody needs to be building a community, as in getting to know your neighbors, having a plan. But the caveat to that is if they're awake. When you try to tell them that, a lot of people, they veer off and think you're, a tinfoil hat. So, trying to do this, it's almost like, truth is a lonely warrior, and a lot of us are aware of this, and a lot of us feel that we're doing this on our own. I have enough weapons, ammunition, first aid to get by. You can get canned goods. I have a spring that's right near my house. That's fresh water, comes right out of the earth. And that's a mile away. So I have fresh water, which is the most important thing out of anything. But when it comes to survivability by myself, do I have a cave underground and, solar panels? No, I don't have that. I'm just like every other American. Have a house and a job and bills to pay and scrounging what I can, because I take this from the standpoint of not all of us have this great expansive means of survival. We're all kind of plugged into the matrix trying to figure it out until the switch is flipped and everything happens. So I have enough means to survive, but as in again, like some bunker or something like that, no, I do not.
Well, and let me jump in real quick if I can. Do you mind if I bring up what you did in the military, or the fact that you were in the military? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yes, I would. I don't mind at all, man.
Great. Now, I have a lot of friends and family that have served in the military. They're wonderful people. If they had a dollar left to their name and they were hungry, but they saw that you were, they would give you that dollar. I mean, that's the kind of people that they are. You're not going to get much of the buck. I'm just using that as a figure of speech. So it's a tough deal. And even my brother fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he came back and he talked about it, and he had some tough times with it. And I remember him saying that, there was that initial honeymoon stage where they get you all pumped up and ready to go, and then you come back and he was like, what did I do? What was the main purpose of that? But as far as like the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, even if there was weapons of mass destruction, and I heard from some inside sources, and I can't say who these people are, but they've worked with many organizations, and there was weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein moved out of there shortly before the invasion. But even with that said, so what? I mean, there's plenty of countries out there that have weapons of mass destruction, right? So does that necessarily mean that we've got more weapons of mass destruction than I think about anybody? So does that give us the right? Well, all that I'm saying is, I don't know if there was that direct threat. You know what I mean? So I can certainly see it being like a corporate deal more so than.
Yeah. Well.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, no problem.
I would say, man, if you wanted to know if there was a weapon of mass destruction there, it was, and it was called U.S. military. There's a lot of innocent civilians that were hurt and killed on both sides to that whole campaign of us being there, man. For my mission, I wasn't out looking for WMDs. If I really wanted to, we should have just gone back to good old Dick Cheney and asked him when he was shaking Saddam's hand where they were. But needless to say that, it was a big flim flam sham job, man. It was just a good way to get a foothold in the Middle East, to be able to spread their dark tentacles across the Middle East, in my opinion. But there was no weapons of mass destruction there. I see more innocent people get hurt or killed from both sides than I did from any type of nuclear, biological, chemical agent, or some big explosive. So, from my opinion, no, our mission wasn't there. It was just a constant cycle of exposing ourselves, making contact, or trying to find IEDs. A lot of the weapons or munitions were shipped from China and